8:12 now. This summer, many young athletes are spending their days in training camps, clinics, or workshops. But with year-round sports becoming more the norm, some doctors see a rise in overuse injuries. Dr. Roubion from Metairie Orthopedics and Sports Medicine joins us with that issue. Good morning.
Thanks, John.
How big an issue is this?
It's constant, especially during the springtime. We'll start seeing them come in, mostly baseball players. They're having elbow problems, they're having shoulder problems, and you start just getting a little bit of history from them. What have you been doing the last few weeks? Well, baseball just started. Okay, well, what were you doing last month? Oh, well, I was working with a coach. Well, when did your last season end? Oh, toward the end of the year. So you realize these kids never took a break.
And more prevalent, I assume, in pitchers?
Oh, yeah, certainly. The pitching motion is putting a lot of force across our elbow and our shoulder, abnormal forces too, and we can handle it to a degree. A few weeks, a few months, 80 pitches here, 100 pitches there, that's a lot. And over time, it can certainly lead to some degeneration throughout the arm.
Well, and you think of Tiger Woods and, the famous video of him with the comedian Bob Hope, and, at a very young age, and golf especially, that crazy motion and what it does to your back.
That's right, and you can imagine they're doing that same motion from the time they're 5 years old, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, through the time they're a teenager or even a pro, and they never take a break from that. They never even swing left-handed. Could you imagine if they just swung left-handed half the time? They'd be balanced.
Is rest and recovery different in children, the factors that go into that versus adults?
Well, I think the main thing in kids is they're going to see a lot of forces across their growth plates, whereas in adults, we're going to see it across our ligaments.
Okay, forgive me, growth plates where the bone is kind of softer and sort of expanding before it hardens?
That's right. It's the cartilage line in the bone itself where kids are growing, and that area is susceptible to injury, whereas in adults, we don't have that problem, but instead in adults, we're looking at ligament injuries instead.
So if I'm a mom or dad and my son is really and he shows some signs of being a really good pitcher, or he just enjoys it, whatever level, son or daughter, what should I be thinking about in terms of rest periods or that sort of thing?
They have some really good recommendations on MLB.com, and some other organizations have put across some guidelines. Some of the important things are you're supposed to take 3 months off per year from pitching. That's big, and that's hard to do. That's number one. Number two, all these different leagues are going to have guidelines based on your son's or daughter's age. Based on their age, they're supposed to only do a certain number of pitches per week, certain number of pitches per game, and it dictates what a rest period is going to be after that game. Usually 1, 2, or 3 days, or even 4, depending on how many pitches they've done.
I see guys go out to the driving range and they just start swinging. and my dad, who was a golfer, always preached you got to warm up, but a real warm up. That makes a difference, whether it's golf or basketball?
It really does, because too often we hear the story, well, I went out in the outfield and I started doing long toss and all of a sudden I felt a pop in my arm. So they didn't have the proper warm-up. They weren't loose. If your hips and your trunk aren't ready for that motion, if they're not properly warmed up, you're going to see increased forces over the arm.
So what are really quickly then the warning signs?
The warning signs are if you're starting to feel some aches and pains, it's a sign that you're probably doing too much. About half of all pitchers in Little League are going to report elbow or shoulder pain throughout the year. That's the time to seek treatment, not 3 or 4 months down the road. You've already kind of missed the boat.
All right, Dr. Roubion, thanks so much for your advice.